wasted everyone's money, I wasted everyone's everything, and I feel bad. You don't think I feel bad?
This is called Botox crying face. When you try to make an ugly crying face, certain parts of your face don't move due to the Botox, and it makes you look weird like this.
Stop what you're doing, because if you thought we'd seen every Kardashian-level face reset, buckle up. We're unpacking a mess of filtered selfies, fans losing it over a masked red carpet look, and a tidal wave of online sleuthing that claims Kim Kardashian has gone under the knife again. It's loud, it's petty, and it's strangely mesmerizing because, for better or worse, the Kardashians have taught the world to watch, to judge, and to monetize outrage. So let me serve it to you bluntly. This isn't just a single photo. It's a cultural signal, and we're going to unspool it. Let's start with the trigger, a recent appearance that had fans comparing Kim to a Halloween prop. The tabloids ran with it. The reaction GIF machines that live on X and in comment threads exploded, and within hours, the narrative seeded itself. New surgery, masked look, yikes. Publications that traffic in reaction commentary amplified screenshots and snark, while other outlets framed the chatter as an evolution of a long story. Kim, image-obsessed, pushing aesthetics so far that the optics start to look cartoonish. And because the internet always wants receipts, the rumor mill lit up like a cheap marquee. Now, your first instinct might be to roll your eyes at another round of celebrity body policing. And that reaction is fair. But there's a strategy here. The Kardashians know how to make looks land. Whether deliberate or accidental, a bizarre photo or an odd angle sparks conversation and consumption. It becomes content, which becomes currency. So when fans suddenly claim someone's gone too far, that outrage is itself part of a brand loop. It feeds clicks, streaming minutes, commentary videos, and eventually, product sales. This is spectacle capitalism working exactly as designed. According to People, the family has always had a complicated relationship with procedures and disclosure. They've admitted to some tweaks, denied or joked about others, and left the rest to rumor and rumor's profitable cousin, speculation. That back and forth is crucial. It creates plausible deniability while keeping the feeding frenzy alive. The net effect? Audiences stay obsessed, tabloids thrive, and the Kardashians keep steering the cultural conversation about what counts as natural versus marketable. You see this pattern again and again. A look, a whisper, and suddenly, did she or didn't she threads pop up across forums. Fan sleuths comb past photos, angles, and lighting to build a case. Cosmetic clinics that service A-listers become shadowy players in armchair investigations. Meanwhile, images from recent trips, like a widely discussed beauty pilgrimage to Seoul for K-beauty inspiration, get folded into the narrative as evidence that someone is tinkering with their face. It's meaningful theater. Travel equals transformation, and transformation equals new headlines. Let's talk about the Korea trip for a second, because it matters more than it seems. Traveling to beauty capitals and posting about treatments is performative in a way that blurs health, vanity, and branding. Whether Kim is actually getting procedures in Seoul or just soaking up trends, the optics are potent. It signals that she is chasing or amplifying a new aesthetic, and fans read that signal as proof of alteration. In the influencer economy, perception is a product, and influencers sell perception for profit. The tabloids love a before and after. Index Online ran a retrospective showing Kim's evolving looks over the years. And when you line up those photos, the changes are undeniable. But interpretation is everything. Is this the result of aging, contouring, weight fluctuation, filters, or surgical work? Fans will litigate each possibility in painstaking detail. And outlets that profit from outrage will happily frame the most dramatic narrative, because it's the one that keeps readers in motion and comment sections combusting. This is where the cultural stakes sharpen. We're not just gossiping about a single face, we're watching a woman, one of the most well-known faces on the planet, become a living billboard for aspirational and often unattainable beauty standards. When a celebrity like Kim blends surgical alteration, filters, and surgical denial as an aesthetic strategy, it teaches millions where to look for success in the marketplace of looks. It sets trends that feed industries, injectables, contour kits, clinic appointments, and a booming cosmetic tourism market. There's also the family angle. Kris Jenner, per recent coverage, has her own wave of speculation for appearing more youthful in Paris recently. That feeds a familiar script: the matriarch who markets reinvention, rehearses transformation, and sells the narrative of always improving. When Kris looks younger, it legitimizes the family's aesthetic project and gives the kids cultural permission to chase perfection. The optics are not accidental. They fit neatly into a family brand architecture that profits from reinvention. And don't forget the PR calculus. The Kardashians are masters at channeling controversy into product. A bad selfie becomes a trend campaign. A rumor becomes a sponsor-friendly viral moment. The business model thrives on attention, whether flattering or scathing. That means whenever the mob smells surgery, the family has choices: deny, deflect, or lean in and monetize the chatter via new launches, interviews, or behind-the-scenes content. Either way, attention is the commodity, and they are expert traders. Critics argue that flip-flopping or opaque stances about cosmetic work hurt the very authenticity the Kardashians sell. The family has built empires by trading on relatability. I had a bad day, or I struggled with X, and then selling solutions. But when the solution looks like expensive, repeated surgical transformations, the relatability erodes. Young fans might feel sold a dream that requires endless procedures and PR smoke. That gap between marketed authenticity and behind-the-scenes fabrication is where the critique gets sharpest. Let's be precise about tone. This channel is not here to call names or to dunk for the sake of cruelty. There's an ethical line between commentary and body shaming, and the smartest critiques focus on systems. What industries are enabled when celebrities present mediated, surgically tuned images as lifestyle? It's about the ripple effects. Increased pressure on bodies, normalized surgical intervention as a life hack, and a cultural ledger that privileges cosmetic capital over diversity and natural aging. Meanwhile, fans are not a monolith. Some defended Kim, pointing to makeup, lighting, and aging as the likely culprits. Others demanded a statement, the modern equivalent of an old-school apology or clarification. The tense social media ecosystem now means that even a perceived no comment is its own statement. In the absence of official confirmation, people will invent narratives that fit their worldview. Some see confirmation bias for surgery. Others see an organized smear. Most see content to be consumed. From a cultural analytics perspective, it's fascinating how quickly narratives ossify. One unsettling dynamic is that once a celebrity's appearance is flagged as changed, every future photograph is weaponized as corroboration. Editors and social users clip, slow motion, and zoom. Lighting becomes suspicious. Hairstyle changes become proof of a wider conspiracy. This is not just about Kim. It's about an ecosystem trained to find patterns and confirm them, even when randomness, aging, or stylistic choices would be more plausible explanations. Historically, the Kardashians have navigated this terrain with a mix of confession and evasion. People magazine has reported on family members' candid talk about certain procedures, while others have laughed off accusations as jokes or old receipts. That selective transparency is interesting. Admit what hurts less to admit. Deflect what threatens the brand's core mythology. The result is a curated honesty that keeps fans engaged while retaining the mystique of transformation as a lifestyle product. Let's also pull in a conversational truth. The public's appetite for transformation stories is inexhaustible. We lionize before and after arcs when they're framed as self-improvement, but we vilify them when they look too manufactured. There's a contradiction there. Desire for radical refreshes paired with moral panic about excessive beauty work. That contradiction fuels most celebrity gossip. We both crave and condemn the same thing. The Kardashians excel at being the mirror of that contradiction. It matters that the tabloids and social commentariat often weaponize language, exposed, caught, gone too far, to frame the story as scandal rather than evolution. Those words are infectious. They translate an aesthetic judgment into a moral one. When a publication runs an exposed headline, the cultural conversation shifts from neutral observation to accusatory spectacle. That shift invites pile-on, which helps no one, except maybe the outlet's analytics dashboard. Another twist. The family's own business interests intersect with medical aesthetics. They license beauty products, endorse dermatologists, and sell contouring tutorials that mimic cosmetic outcomes. That economic entanglement blurs a key line. When you profit off of people wanting to look like you, admitting that massive resources or surgical interventions were used undermines your product's implied attainability. So the incentive to maintain some version of natural messaging is structural, not merely personal. Fans and critics also lean on chronology. When someone like Kim is photographed in a new light or with a different expression, the internet timestamps become a court of public opinion. Outlets that did timelines of Kim's appearances showed incremental shifts. Stacking those images creates a visual argument that's hard to ignore. But timelines are also selection bias in motion. Editors pick the frames that amplify change, not necessarily the ones that illustrate variance or context. And readers often mistake a curated montage for definitive evidence. We should also situate this in the broader celebrity ecosystem. Kim is not the first public figure to face repeated surgical speculation, nor will she be the last. But her brand is unusually intertwined with her looks. Everything from fragrance lines to makeup tutorials depends on a particular aesthetic. That concentration creates risk. If the aesthetic is later interpreted as largely manufactured, the credibility of adjacent businesses can erode. That's a reputational calculus that executives and partners watch closely. What about age? There is an ageist double standard at play in a million comment sections. Women in the spotlight are expected to look good forever, but they're punished for trying to do it. Men rarely face the same level of scrutiny for cosmetic maintenance. When Kris looks refreshed at 69, tabloids speculate about procedures and also, paradoxically, admire her youthfulness as a mastery of reinvention. That cognitive dissonance reveals our cultural hypocrisy. We admire the result while denigrating the labor behind it. Pulling back. Why does any of this matter beyond celebrity theater? Because pop culture shapes norms. A teenager scrolling through aspirational feeds learns what bodies are desirable, what investments are expected, and what success looks like. The Kardashian industrial complex, reality TV, sponsored posts, beauty products, functions as a curriculum in aesthetic aspiration. The ripple effect is measurable. Increased interest in cosmetic procedures, burgeoning influencer-adjacent clinics, and a market that monetizes the longing for a look. So when a tabloid headline screams that Kim went too far after an appearance, it's not just entertainment. It's a microcosm of a market that commodifies body image. The debate will rage. Is this expression of personal autonomy and self-investment, or is it part of an exploitative cycle that sells unattainable standards? Both can be true at once, and that's the paradox that feeds both fascination and critique. Understanding that is essential if you're trying to be more than a reflexive gossip consumer. On a human level, it's worth reminding ourselves that these are people under relentless public scrutiny. That reality complicates easy moralizing. The choice to alter one's appearance can be perfectly valid for any number of personal reasons, and nobody has a moral high ground to adjudicate another's face. Yet, when that very choice becomes a business pillar and cultural instruction manual, critique is justified. The challenge is balancing empathy for personal autonomy with accountability for cultural influence. Which brings us to strategy. How might the family respond to this latest wave? Historically, they've done everything from official denials to strategic reveals. A measured, honest statement could quell curiosity, but it might also puncture the brand mythology that sells products. A deflective joke could reframe the moment as nonchalant and avoid traction. Or they could lean into the drama and convert it into a campaign, a realness moment, or a new beauty drop tied to the exact aesthetic that sparked outrage. All roads lead to content. Public reaction will shape the fallout. If fans mobilize in defense, the family loses nothing but some social media noise. If mockery dominates, there's reputational wear that could frictionally affect certain market segments. Brands considering partnerships run sensitivity analyses. They don't want to be attached to a controversy that misaligns with their audience. But the Kardashians are experienced risk managers. They've survived scandals that would sink lesser empires by converting outrage into revenue and narrative control. Let's get real about social media mechanics. Platforms incentivize outrage. The algorithm rewards shocking imagery and polarizing takes. That means that even if there's a 15-second anomaly in a red carpet video, pixels can be weaponized into a narrative that travels faster than nuance. Our attention economy thrives on cliff notes, clickbait headlines that flatten complexity into digestible fury. Recognizing that reflex is the starting point for any sober conversation about celebrity spectacle. A recurring scene in these debates: experts weighing in. Dermatologists, plastic surgeons, and makeup artists will offer competing explanations, each with a stake. Surgeons may describe likely procedures. Makeup artists will explain contouring and optical tricks. Skeptics will highlight weight changes or aging. The net result is a cacophony of plausible readings, none of which serve as definitive proof without an actual medical confirmation. And that, again, is why the ethics line matters. Still, the cultural critique remains potent, even without naming procedures. We can talk about image labor, the emotional cost of maintaining a public face, and the marketplace that prizes perpetual refinement. These conversations point to systemic concerns. When aesthetic perfection becomes both marketable and a prerequisite, you create an industry of correction that extracts wealth from people seeking belonging through appearance. That political economy of beauty is the scaffolding beneath the gossip. I also want to note the gendered commerce at the center of this story. The beauty industrial complex leans heavily on women as consumers and subjects. When the Kardashian family markets products promising glow or lift, it taps into long-standing cultural anxieties about aging, desirability, and worth. That dynamic is not purely about personal choice. It's shaped by advertising, media representation, and systemic pressures that privilege certain looks. Criticism of the family's opacity is therefore not merely personal, it's political. Before we sign off, here's the mandatory but important point. Unless Kim or a verified representative confirms specific surgeries, any claims about procedures remain speculation. Fans speculate, tabloids report suspicion, and commentators interpret. But medical facts belong to medical records, and journalists should be cautious about asserting things as true without confirmation. It's a small ethical anchor in a sea of rumor, and it's worth repeating that distinction out loud before the pile-on begins. Let's be specific about impact on younger audiences. Influencers and micro-celebrities model behaviors that ripple down the social graph. Teens watch tutorials, mimic filters, and save for treatments they believe will buy them social capital. When a mega brand like the Kardashians normalizes an aesthetic that may rely on expensive maintenance, it shapes aspirations that are unequally accessible. That creates gatekeeping by wealth. Certain looks require money, procedures, or expensive products, which in turn reinforces socioeconomic divisions in the pursuit of desirability. Another predictable pattern is legal and brand risk management. If controversy over a look evolves into rumor-laden accusations, lawyers and brand managers will calculate exposure. Endorsement deals include morality clauses and reputational risk assessments. Brands can pivot away if the optics misalign with their values. Conversely, some partners embrace controversy for reach. The Kardashian playbook has previously balanced both approaches adroitly, keeping strategic partners close while monetizing sensation for maximum cultural impact. For the digital gossip ecosystem, there's also the economics of repetition. Each cycle of speculation generates fresh content for dozens of sites and thousands of posts. That repetition builds a narrative continuity where the subject becomes defined by controversy rather than accomplishment. Over time, an individual risks being typecast, not by talent or business acumen, but by the persistent storylines about their appearance. That's a narrow lens for anyone's legacy. And it's why critiques of the media's fixation are valid. There's an emotional honesty worth mentioning. The people we're talking about are navigating identity and public expectation in real time. Even if the family treats looks as a product, individual family members may still wrestle privately with insecurity, aging, and the consequences of being commodified. That human element complicates our appetite for spectacle. It asks that we consider consequences beyond entertainment, the health cost, the isolation, and the long-term reputational toll of being perpetually parsed. Okay, last thought before the sign-off. Whatever your position, critic, defender, or exhausted viewer, the broader implication is this: our culture continues to buy and sell the idea of perfection. The Kardashians aren't solely responsible, but they're an accelerant in a market that prizes curated illusion. If we want a different cultural output, the work starts with demand. Stop rewarding manufactured outrage and start rewarding complexity, nuance, and people being allowed to age without becoming fodder. So what's the takeaway? Kim's recent looks and the resulting uproar are a mirror, a reflection of a culture that trades in appearance as currency, a media ecosystem that monetizes outrage, and a family that knows exactly how to keep us watching. Whether you're into the drama, sick of the churn, or somewhere in between, know this: the story won't end with a single headline. It evolves, it monetizes, and it teaches us all, in tiny steps, what to value. If you like this breakdown, hit subscribe, like, and ring that bell, and drop your hot take in the comments. I read every comment, and there's a follow-up episode in the making if enough of you want a deep dive into the receipts and the ratios. Thanks!